It's Wednesday. You all know what that means. It's time for another episode of Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This week, with the Marvels coming out, instead of doing something MCU related, I wanted to do something superhero related, but kind of a tweak on something that Jacob and I have done in the past. So, in the tradition of what we've done in a couple of episodes of great movies that were never made, I found an article called 15 comic book movies that were almost made and 10 we're glad got shelved. So Jacob and I are going to be reviewing that, and we'll also be talking about The Defenders episode 7. But first, Jacob Martin, daylight savings, huh?
Yeah, still not used to it. I don't understand what daylight saving is all about, but you live one day at a time, and it takes a day or two to adjust.
Yeah, it's one foot in front of the other and all of that. But how are you? How's the eye?
The eye's doing better. That's I actually got through all the ointment stuff, and my eyes are pretty much back to where they were, but they're straighter and they're not. It's I don't feel as much pain from post surgery, so it's doing a lot better.
Well, that's good to hear. I am happy that you're doing better. But let's dive into the episode. And before we dive into Defenders coverage, we got a bit of a trailer and a very intriguing one. We got the trailer, the first teaser trailer for Wes Ball's Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This is the first Planet of the Apes movie with 20th Century Studios instead of 20th Century Fox. The last Planet of the Apes movie we got was War for the Planet of the Apes, all the way back in 2017. So we've had some time to wait for this one. But to be completely honest, without Matt Reeves or Andy Serkis involved in this, I'm still very much looking forward to this one. This definitely piques my interest, Jacob. What did you think?
So I actually enjoyed all the previous Planet of the Apes films, especially the last two directed by Matt Reeves. I feel like without Matt Reeves, there's a little bit of hesitation that a new Planet of the Apes film is going to be really good. And of course, Andy Serkis is not coming back as Caesar. We all know his character's fate if you've seen the end of War for the Planet of the Apes. Uh, I thought it was still a good teaser though. Like the visual effects are still on par with the other movies. They look better than some of the recent Marvel stuff we've been getting lately. So I guess that's an accomplishment right there. And there's a little bit of intrigue in the story. It sounds like it's building closer to where this franchise is by the time you get to the original Planet of the Apes, as the movies that were previously made, the last trilogy was designed as like a prequel trilogy to the original movie, which I do respect that. And I hope this movie has a story that can live up to what the previous movies built up to. I haven't seen any of this director's other work. I know this director Wes Ball did the Maze Runner movies. They look like young adult fluff to me, so I never watched any of them. So I hope he has his work cut out for him, and he directs a very captivating film in the franchise.
I'm very tempted with the release of Kingdom to review all the Planet of the Apes movies because the Planet of the Apes movies is secretly a wild franchise. Like you have the first one, which is an all-time sci-fi classic with Charlton Heston, and then the sequel in which Charlton Heston's character, Taylor, literally pulls a nuke and blows up the planet because he was so dead set against any more sequels that he pretty much said, like, I'm just going to kill this thing. But he forgot that the studio was like, we can still do prequels. And so, like, the remaining, like, movies leading up to this are basically how the Earth became the Planet of the Apes. And the Rise of the Planet of the Apes with Rupert Wyatt was almost kind of a soft reboot, if you will. So and then Rise was very good, and then Dawn and War were both excellent. So minus the Burton one, the Planet of the Apes movies have had a pretty strong track record of quality. I really want to review those now. But with Kingdom, I want to see more, but as I sit right now with this teaser, I really enjoyed what I saw, and I feel like there is some meat on the bones left what you can do with this idea, and where things left off with the apes basically winning at the end and Caesar now no longer with us. It's going to be interesting. But as I sit here now, I'm looking forward to it. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes teaser? Comment below, let us know. But Jacob, before we dive into Defenders, I almost forgot. Is there anything interesting that you watched lately you want to talk about?
There's two I want to talk about. One, I watched the Haunted Mansion, the new version of the Haunted Mansion that was released earlier this year. I watched it on Disney Plus. Uh, I was curious about how it would be. I know Ryan. I remember you said you hated this movie and said it was one of the worst movies you saw this year.
Uh-huh. But I'm glad that it seemed like you liked it more than I did, which is fine. I actually
Yeah, I don't think it's a great movie by any means, but I like it better than the Eddie Murphy one. I think this one, I think at least tried. It felt like it retained the spirit of what the Haunted Mansion ride was supposed to be. I liked some of the callbacks and the Easter eggs of the Haunted Mansion attraction that are sprinkled throughout the movie. I love the fact that the Hatbox Ghost is the villain. It's weird that Jared Leto is playing a CGI character, but hey, I guess he didn't have to go full method this time. And sometimes when he goes full method, it's very weird. So I do like the cast in this movie. I really liked Lakeith Stanfield, especially. I thought was terrific. I think he didn't have to give that good of a performance, considering it's Disney's The Haunted Mansion. But I thought he was terrific. But the other actors were good too. Maybe not on par with him, but it was good seeing Rosario Dawson and Danny DeVito and Owen Wilson. You know, doing what they do best in the material they were given. The movie's not without its faults. I think they over rely on the CGI too much, that a lot of the film looks cartoonish. Whereas the original Haunted Mansion, the one thing I have to give it props for was, yeah, the CGI hadn't held up well, but there's practical effects that blend in along with it. And so there's a little bit of a better seamless blend, I guess. Whereas this film was mostly CGI, and a lot of it, I thought, like I said, took me out of the movie. I also felt like the film felt watered down in its attempts to be like a horror film. And I think considering the movie touches upon grief and those aspects I thought were handled very well, I feel like the movie could have dived into it a little bit more on a psychological level. And I wish it took a little bit more narrative risks with it. And a part of me wished that they had just stuck with Guillermo del Toro's version, because Guillermo del Toro was the guy who was originally attached to make this movie. He wrote a draft to Disney back in 2010, but Disney thought his draft was too scary, and so they hired new writers. And that's a bit of a shame. I think, especially if you go back to like the Disney in the late 70s, early 80s, if Guillermo del Toro was a filmmaker at that time, his Haunted Mansion movie would have been an awesome film if it was released in 1980s Disney, where they were taking risks and releasing these very dark movies that they wouldn't make today. So there's a little bit of a missed opportunity there, but to me the movie's okay. It has its problems, but there's still some entertainment value to it, and I can see this being kind of like a gateway film for its genre, I guess, for younger kids.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I just thought the movie was annoying. And you bring up the Guillermo del Toro side of things. He technically did direct a Haunted Mansion movie called Crimson Peak. I'm not
Oh
sure.
yeah,
I'm not sure if you saw that movie, Jake.
that's a really good movie.
Yeah, with Tom Hiddleston, and that movie is surprisingly good. He basically directed his version of a haunted mansion, but PG-13. So low key, I kind of don't want to see him do Disney's haunted mansion. He kind of already did his own. So I don't know. I'm glad you liked the movie. Clearly, we disagree, but let's agree to disagree. I thought the movie was annoying, boring. Lakeith Stanfield, Tiffany Haddish, like they both deserved better than this.
Yeah, yeah. Tiffany Haddish was the one aspect of the cast that didn't work for me. Her character got on my nerves.
Yeah, and I'm someone who doesn't hate Tiffany Haddish. I think she can be funny, but man, she is like on the wrong side of unfunny. Like she just like had go away heat with me. I was like, shut up. Like stop talking now.
Yeah, and then
Not her character, not
yeah,
her, but her
yeah,
character. I want to throw that out there.
that and Jamie Lee Curtis, I thought was weird casting as Madame Leota too. That was a bit strange as well. But I'd rather take her as Madame Leota than Jennifer Tilly in the Eddie Murphy one. So I'll give her that.
That was a definite step in the right direction there. But what else you got?
And then also, I saw Taylor Swift's Eras tour.
And
I had fun watching that. Like I said, I'm no Swifty, but I have great respect for Taylor Swift and her artistry. And I had nothing better to do this past weekend, so I just went and saw the Eras tour. It's like a near 3 hour movie, which is just like her concert she's currently doing right now. Reflect It's like she highlights her eras, reflect all of the albums that she's put out, and it's like a greatest hits package along with stuff from her newest album. And I thought it was very delightful. I had a bit of a nostalgic kick hearing the Taylor Swift songs I grew up with, and just watching the film made me appreciate like Taylor Swift's artistry and craftsmanship. Some of the consistency in her songs, and her songwriting is very top notch. I can't say I love every single one of her songs, but she does put out banger songs, whether as a country artist or a pop artist. And I greatly enjoyed it, and also how well choreographed it was too. Like the fact that she was in this like sold out arena stage with this very uh, extravagant stage with where she does like I lost count of how many costume changes she did in the show. It was getting crazy after a while, and then you got your and then the stage kept moving and the sets kept changing, and there was and you had the backup dancers and choreographers and stuff. It was a very entertaining show, and it was very colorful. There was a lot of great a lot of great imagery that was on the stage. I had a ball watching it. The runtime flew by, and I haven't seen many theatrical experiences in 2023, but one of my favorites would have to be surprisingly Taylor Swift's Eras tour. I had so much fun watching it.
Yeah, I would never admit to being a Swiftie or a Taylor Swift super fan, but there are like I can go off on one hand of Swift songs that I do actually unironically like. I think she is very talented and she is in the position that she is in for a reason. So I think there is certainly that. It'd be interesting to see like what the box office figures because if 2023 has shown anything is that movies just be having all kinds of trouble at the box office this year. And we've talked about that in other episodes, like Disney and Warner Brothers Discovery taking the heavy brunt of that. But I like a massive, like 3 hour long concert like that. I would like, I would like want to know like what the budget for that or what the budget for filming this was and like what they expected to get back from it. It's odd. Like later on this year, we're getting a Beyonce movie. I can't remember what it's called. Let me look it up. But Maybe I should take Jason the Old Millennial's advice and get a research team. Like,
Oh, I'm looking up how much the Eras tour costs. It says it's between 10 to 20 million dollars was how much it costs to film this.
oh well,
And so far it has made $231 million worldwide.
oh, that's an easy profit right there. Like after they pay everyone, like that's a nice chunk of change right there. So definitely made their money back. And then the movie from Beyonce is called Homecoming. It's also releasing on Netflix, but at my local theater there are showtimes for it already. Along with it's coming out the same day, I believe, as Godzilla Minus One, the new Godzilla movie from Toho. So that's going to be a very interesting day at the theaters.
Well, maybe they can do the whole Barbieheimer thing and promote it as Beyoncilla.
That's excellent. Beyonce. I love it. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed the Eras tour. But if you have nothing else, I actually have just one I would like to share. I have calmed down a little bit after Scary Mania. I'm on the bit of the down low, but still preparing for other things. But one movie I did want to talk about, I finally watched the other night, The Wolf of Wall Street, for the very first time, all 3 hours of it. And this movie is absolutely out of its mind, and I kind of love it. And let me just say that I'm like this movie has been praised to the nines by pretty much everyone worth their salt. So anything that I can add will be pretty much a moot point. But even still, the movie is out of its mind, but that's kind of why it works. It perfectly highlights Jordan Belfort's just mindset of just how he was at the dizzying highest of highs and then just all came crashing down. Like a story like that perfectly fits into Scorsese's wheelhouse because Scorsese is the king of making the rise and fall movie. If you look at Casino, Goodfellas, The Irishman, Wolf of Wall Street, he excels at characters who start off humble, they get either really rich or in really high positions of power, and then they just come crashing down for one reason or another. And Scorsese is just a master of that. With The Wolf of Wall Street, there's a lot of it's been memed to death, with one of us, and like that. But there are several scenes that I actually quite liked that I don't really hear a ton of people talking about. Like after the whole like that scene is Black Monday, which is a really bad day for the stock market. I believe it was October of 87. And the firm that Jordan Belfort was working for, not Stratford and not Stratton and Oakmont that he would form, but the firm that he was working for before all of that went out of business. And it's kind of a quiet moment when it does happen. It's only DiCaprio's voiceover for it, but it really works because in that moment, in my head, when that moment happened, I said to myself, this is the moment where Belfort said, I'm in the position now where I am about to lose everything and I will never be in this position again. And so this moment pretty much crystallizes Belfort's mindset and basically carries it forward for the rest of the movie. And it's low key brilliant. I can see why people wouldn't be crazy about it. And I know, Jacob, I think we were talking and you weren't exactly a humongous fan of the movie. Correct me if I'm wrong. But
I do think it's overrated.
well, I loved it. I thought it was good for all the reasons that people have said and so many more things. The cast is just loaded. You got DiCaprio, you got Jonah Hill, who is awesome. I did not expect Jonah Hill to be that good, but he was. You got John Bernthal, you got Rob Reiner as the director of The Princess Bride and A Few Good Men as Jordan Belfort's dad in the movie, and he's good. You got Jon Favreau as Belfort's lawyer. You got Margot Robbie, I believe, making her film debut as I forget her name now, as Naomi, and Belfort names his yacht after her. It's just a crazy story, and like I said, it's a lot, and I can see like you, Jake, we were talking about how you wouldn't care for it. I can definitely see why, but I love this movie to pieces. I can't wait to talk with Jacob Collins about it.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot more. I can name like 10 other Scorsese films that I think are far better than The Wolf of Wall Street. Like this one, like the story just got so repetitive after a while with like the same old stuff that he's going through that I just kind of stopped caring about it after a while. But the performances are really good, so I'll give it that.
Like I said, totally understandable. I mean, Scorsese's like a lot of these movies definitely have familiar beats to what he likes to do. Like I love Casino, but I do have like the repetitiveness side of things. Like, how many scenes are we gonna get with Sharon Stone like strung out and drugged out of her mind, like yelling at De Niro over custody of their daughter? I'm like, what are we on like the third round doing this? Like, guys, come on. So yeah, I see where you're coming from there, but I love the movie just a little bit more than you did, I suppose. But I pass it off to all of you. Have you all been watching lately? Let us know in the comments. But let's finally get to some Defenders coverage, Jacob. We are at the penultimate episode. It is episode 7, Fish in the Jailhouse. Matt, Jessica, and Luke embark on a desperate search. Colleen and Claire debate heroism. Electra tries to recruit an all-important ally. So we are one episode left for the Defenders. And Jacob, I was actually slightly ahead of you for obvious reasons, but I'm so interested to hear what you have to say about the episode. So take it away.
I thought it was overall good. I think this one took a little bit of a slowdown compared to the previous episodes. I think they're building up for the finale a little bit. There's some intriguing stuff that they set up in this episode, especially kind of like the police force kind of being against the defenders and trying to put them at fault for actions that they're not doing, and associating like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones as vigilantes, and then Matt Murdock's career being on the line because the duality of him and Daredevil's getting closer and closer to being exposed. I thought that was an interesting thing. I thought I'd be more into Elektra being the main villain, but the more that she's like, the more that I'm seeing her in this villainous role, the more she's coming off as a bit one note. I kind of preferred her more so on the side compared to with like some of the other members of the hand being like the main antagonist, because Electra is no Alexandra. Alexander, I think because her being played by Sigourney Weaver brought so much gravitas to the role that I got more into the villainous side with her taking charge. Electra is kind of just and I don't fully understand the reveal of what Iron Fist saw once he pushed the wall or whatever. Like, I was so confused by that final shot. I don't know if that's designed for like comic nerds of the Defenders or anything like that. Hopefully that'll get explained in the next episode. I'm sure it probably will. But I still enjoyed it. I think I'm intrigued by what they're gonna do in the finale, how they're gonna wrap this up. I think I don't I'm hoping it doesn't like fizzle out on me because they killed off the best villain in this series already. But I'm hoping it's still entertaining at least.
Yeah, if they stick the landing with this finale, it's among some of the better Marvel Netflix stuff that we've seen. Like, I'll just put that out there. I would happily put that in, not as good as, but like Daredevil season 1 and Luke Cage season 1. Like, I put it in that conversation because the quality was very consistent, like and and like I said, I don't think it's top 3, but if it's definitely in the top 5, at least for me.
Yeah, I don't like ranking TV seasons of shows where I don't complete watching it until after I see the whole picture. But if the finale of Defenders is good, it'd probably be in the top three of what we've watched so far. Because currently, my top two are the first season of Daredevil and Luke Cage season one.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. But what did you all think? of the Defenders episode 7? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. Well, Jacob, it's main event time. Let us get into 15 comic book movies that were almost made and 10 we're glad got shelved. Now, just a heads up, there are going to be a couple of ones that are ones that we've covered in other episodes, but we'll just breeze through those just for the sake of covering the entire article because we don't clickbait around here. So Jacob, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Starting off with almost made Dazzler. Marvel's mutant Dazzler debuted in February 1980's Uncanny X-Men number 130. She had the ability to convert sound into light and energy. She was not only a superhero, but also enjoyed a thriving singing career. Marvel was looking to create a tie-in with a record label that could be marketed as coming from Dazzler, a la Miley Cyrus's Hannah Montana. It was originally supposed to star Bo Derek, but as soon as Bo Derek left the project for another project, the Dazzler movie completely died on the vine. But I had no idea who this character was. But considering that it came out in the 80s and you would imagine this movie would have been made in the 80s, I think it's weird enough to have been a success. But again, we will truly never know. Jacob, what do you think?
Yeah, I've heard things about the Dazzler character, and I think there's been talks of like Marvel still trying to make at least incorporate the Dazzler character into the MCU. I think they tried to put Dazzler into like the Fox X-Men movies, and that didn't work out. There was a rumor I heard that Taylor Swift might be Dazzler of all people in Deadpool 3. So I don't know if that's going to happen or not.
I
I don't
mean,
think.
of I mean, of all people, I mean, Taylor Swift would be a good get. I mean,
I think she would be good singing wise, but I don't think Taylor Swift is that good acting wise. Some of the minor things I've seen her in, but she
any
singing wise she could pull off. I think if you want to do somebody that can sing and act really well, maybe Lady Gaga would be a better pick.
anyone who saw Cats can confirm that Taylor Swift is not the best in the acting department.
Well, to be fair, in Cats, Taylor Swift had like the one number in the film that I thought was like the one legit entertaining part and another otherwise so bad it's hilarious movie.
Yeah, but Lady Gaga would be a great choice too. She definitely has the acting chops. Watch A Star is Born if you want proof of that. But moving on to another almost made, She-Hulk. In the
Oh,
1980s, The Incredible Hulk was a successful television series. Marvel had hoped to bring along their other Hulk property, She-Hulk. The networks were really interested, so Marvel decided to produce a full-length feature. Originally, they wanted professional volleyballer Gabrielle Reese as She-Hulk, with 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 Mitzi Capture as her alter ego, Jennifer Waters. Around 1989, New World Pictures even hired actress Bridget Nielsen to pose for some promotional photos as She-Hulk. We do know is that was the last we heard of the project and it was shelved indefinitely for reasons unknown. Well, we dodged a bullet there, considering that She-Hulk is now known nowadays for twerking with Megan Thee Stallion. So dodged a big old bullet with that one.
I'm sorry, you cracked me up on the She-Hulk thing. My dad, I gotta tell you this one. I poke fun of his vocabulary sometimes. Like he'll do some like grammatical errors and stuff, and sometimes he'll go up and say the Incredible Hulk. So you reminded me of my dad there.
It's the Incredible Hulk, son.
but, but yeah, the less said of She-Hulk, the better. That MCU show we got, I would argue, is like the worst thing MCU related. Um, maybe if like Bridget Nielsen, I like in Rocky Four. I think she probably would have had the build to play She-Hulk if the movie was made in the '80s. But yeah, so far, just from what I know of the character, I'm not a fan. So I probably wouldn't have been a good movie either.
Yeah, unfortunately, but another almost made, and this is one we eventually ended up getting, Doctor Strange. Well, we know we finally got a Doctor Strange film in November 2016. However, there was an earlier project in the works as far back as the 80s. The first attempt that we could find was based on a 1986 Bob Gale script of Back to the Future fame. Producer Charles Brand described it in favor of a script by C. Courtney Joyner. However, his option expired before production began, and the rights were lost to Savoy Pictures. Interestingly enough, Charles Brand continued working on the project under the title of Dr. Mordred, starring Jeffrey Combs as the titular Doctor Strange-esque character. He released the low-budget knockoff in 1992. We would have to wait another 24 years to get a real Doctor Strange film. So considering the Doctor Strange film we ended up getting, I'm pretty sure whatever we got from Scott Derrickson was 1,000 times better than what it was describing in this article.
Yeah, I think with Doctor Strange, yeah, I don't think releasing Doctor Strange in like the 80s or 90s would have worked. The tech it would have been kind of hard to pull off some of the more trippy stuff in Doctor Strange at that time. I'm very glad we got what we have now in the MCU with the film Scott Derrickson directed in 2016, and then its follow up directed by Sam Raimi. I think both are very wild, wacky, and entertaining rides.
Yeah, that's for sure. But next up in the almost made category, Silver Surfer, Prodigal Son. We could have gotten a Silver Surfer standalone movie. Uh, the character was included in the 2007 film Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. The visuals were great, the film itself was lackluster. Yeah, you're telling me. Fox was hoping for another chance to get the character right, as the cosmic scale of the Surfer just begs for a silver screen adaptation, though Disney's bid to buy Fox isn't final. This article was released in 2019, by the way. It is final now. Pretty much all of their unused properties are being shelved. So, considering where superhero movies are nowadays, I don't think we're going to be getting a Silver Surfer anything for a while. But a character like Silver Surfer kind of begs for something cosmic like that. I would personally like to see it.
Yeah, like the only my only knowledge of the Silver Surfer is through the Fantastic Four movie he was in, and that film was pretty mediocre at best. I want to see the character done right, I guess, even though I'm not a comic reader. And I think you got to go with his, I guess, comic origins, where if I'm not mistaken, it's like you said, it's a cosmic story. Marvel can do cosmic stories. Like look at the Guardians movies, for instance. Those movies embrace that stuff. So if the Guardians movies can be successful, I can see a world where the Silver Surfer can be as well, if done right.
Yes, I agree. Also, shout out to that Rise of the Silver Surfer movie. They at least got the look right, but just everything else was just not great. And I don't hate those movies, but they were not particularly outstanding. Let's just say that. But next up in the almost made is a Kitty Pryde standalone movie. As far back as January 2018, it was reported that Tim Miller of Deadpool fame was developing a solo movie for the popular X-Men character, which he could potentially direct. Also known at various times as Shadowcat, Sprite, and Ariel, Kitty Pryde is a mutant with the ability to become intangible and pass through solid objects. While Miller hasn't given up on the project, he hasn't exactly been waiting around either. He's currently producing the Sonic the Hedgehog film for Paramount, so Kitty Pryde is still in production.
Yeah.
Also Terminator Dark Fate, which he directed, was just awful. So I'm not looking forward to anything he directs for a while now.
Yeah. Yeah, Kitty Pryde, we've seen her in some of the other X-Men movies. Solid character. I can't see her being the lead of a movie though. But like I think she probably works better as a side character, like some of the other stuff. But yeah, Tim Miller, his track record has been very hit and miss. Like you said, Terminator Dark Fate was disappointing. Deadpool's pretty good though, so I that one I could just take it or leave it on.
Yeah, and the first Deadpool movie was a lot of fun. It still is a lot of fun. I recommend you check that out. That's about as good a Deadpool movie as we're probably ever going to get. But next up in Almost Made, a Doctor Doom standalone movie. And just a side note, I'll with the whole thing with Jonathan Majors, I mean, I'm just saying Doctor Doom is right there collecting dust. Just make him the new villain. Like, there you go.
Um, well, if anything, Doctor Doom needs to be done right more than anything else. Because they have botched this character twice now. First in the Zeros Fantastic Four movies, and then even worse the second time in Fant Four Stick.
They
Uh,
basically turned him into a crash test dummy that glowed in the dark. Like
yeah,
like
and the design was just terrible.
like Doctor Doom is not only really smart, but he runs his own country, Latveria. Like I don't even read the comics and I know this.
Yeah,
So
none of the movies have even done anything with that. So
there's so much juice that you can squeeze with a character like Doctor Doom. Like, hello.
I'm definitely open to a Doctor Doom movie. You just got to do the character right and pick the right actor.
I agree. Well, next up is The Multiple Man. This might have been a fun movie in the vein of Tim Miller's Deadpool. Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, is an X-Men character, such as Gambit, X-Force, and the New Mutants. There's a lot of uncertainty about their future with Fox right now. Simon Kinberg was known to have developed the script, with James Franco attached to play the mutant who can duplicate himself at will. But it looks like it is shelved indefinitely. And considering that Kinberg's last movie was the three, not the 369, but it was like the 355.
Yeah,
That's it.
355. Yeah,
That movie was not good. I'm kind of glad we dodged. I think we dodged another bullet with that one.
yeah, and I think he also directed Dark Phoenix as well, which I never watched that, but I know it wasn't the most well liked comic book movie.
I think it's overly hated. It's not great, but it's not horrible either. I've heard people just rip it to shreds, and I'm just sitting there like Spawn, Batman and Robin, like those movies, those are the worst. That doesn't even approach the worst. I guess it's just disappointing more than anything because I'm not even a big X-Men reader, and I know Dark Phoenix is the biggest story in the X-Men canon, and they've botched it twice pretty much. And I don't hate The Last Stand, but still.
Yeah, but I think Multiple Man, I would have been intrigued to see that one. Like, I think that would have been a fun role for James Franco to play if he had played, if he was able to play that character. I don't think we'll get it now because of the what happened with Fox being bought out by Disney. But I probably would have had fun with that one if it was a legit movie.
Yeah, I agree. Well, next up is Batman v Superman, and we ended up getting a Batman v Superman movie. However, this was set to be written by Akiva Goldsman and directed by Wolfgang Peterson of Air Force One fame. Batman would have been played by Christian Bale, and
Oh,
Superman would have been played by Josh Hartnett. And Warner Brothers was aiming for a 2004 release. However, instead they basically split the franchises, and we ended up getting Batman Begins and what was that?
Superman
2000
Returns.
Superman Returns. Thank you. But and we could have gotten because we got Josh Hartnett and Oppenheimer this year. Like if Chris Nolan were on board to attach that, we could have gotten like two of Chris Nolan's like go-tos in the Batman and Superman role almost. But I mean, this sounds promising. I mean, I am a fan of Wolfgang Peterson. Akiva Goldsman hit or miss. So I don't know. In 2004, I don't think the world would have been ready for that.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. Like we already know how great Christian Bale's Batman is. Josh Hartnett. I mean, I can't picture him as Superman just off the top of my head, but he is a good actor. And sometimes, you expect the unexpected as far as actors go. He probably could have been good in the role. The fact that this movie's not never got made intrigued me because I think with the talent involved, that it's to me it's more of a what if. But the more important thing is whether you love the movie or not, we did get a Batman versus Superman movie for better or worse, and that's the one that we'll be talking about. So,
Yeah, definitely for
says
sure.
Zack
Next
Snyder, yeah.
Next up is Elektra, an Elektra standalone movie, and we ended up getting one with Jennifer Garner. I have not seen it, but I've been reliably informed it is not good. But we did end up getting Elektra in the Daredevil Netflix series and also in the Defenders, and that adaptation I think is very solid. So I think that version of the character is about as good an Elektra as we're probably ever going to get.
Yeah, I don't know if I want another Electra movie. I've not seen the one with Jennifer Garner, but well, I've heard it's terrible. Electra is an okay character in the Marvel Netflix shows. I like her more in the Defenders than I do in Daredevil. To me, I think she's more intriguing as a villain personally, but I don't know. I don't think Electra can stand on her own as a movie, but that's just me, just from what I know of the character.
Yeah, and she would have taken on the hand in that movie too. So keeping it consistent with the lore there. But next up is Black Panther. Now we ended up getting Black Panther, but this Black Panther would have been starring Wesley Snipes. It was set to release in 1992 with Columbia Pictures behind it because Marvel was basically broke at the time and they basically had to sell off their film rights to whoever wanted them, which is why Hulk is in this weird nether realm of Universal and Disney. It's a whole thing. But we ended up getting just pretty much one of the best MCU movies in Black Panther, like in 2018. So I don't know what Snipes could have done with the character, but it it is at the very least intriguing. Like Wesley Snipes was still a pretty hot actor by the early 90s. So I'm not shooting it down in my head, but clearly there was like some creative stuff going on. It was in development hell until at least 2007, and then the tax evasion stuff came up and it just killed it entirely.
Yeah, like Wesley Snipes is a good actor. I'm glad he got to play a Marvel character with Blade. And what to me, Wesley Snipes is Blade. Like it's like that role is his at the moment. Nothing's gonna take that away. But I can see Wesley Snipes being Black Panther if the film was made in the '90s. I think that would have been again another interesting what if he had played that character as early as the '90s. And I'm even more curious who would have directed that film had it had come out at that time in that era. But again, I'm happy for the MCU film we've got with Ryan Coogler directing, and especially that first film with the late Chadwick Boseman, who did such a powerful job playing that character. But Wesley Snipes, though, like that one's a what if for sure.
Well, at least we always have Blade, am I right?
Yeah, definitely. Especially the first Blade. The first Blade's really awesome. The two sequels, not really, but Wesley Snipes is still really good in them.
Well, I really like Blade 2. Blade 2 is pretty good. I have not seen Trinity, though
Oh, Trinity is terrible.
I've heard bad things, but next up, and we can just breeze through this one. Superman Lives, which would have been directed by Kevin Smith. There's been like the late John Schnepp. I don't know if you know who he is, Jacob.
I've heard of him. Yeah.
He released a documentary called The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. So I think we all know what happened here. But considering in the Flash we ended up getting like a visualization of Nick Cage as the Superman, or well, binary code in the form of Nick Cage because the CGI was so bad. But it would have been interesting to see like would have what would have passed for Superman in that era.
Yeah, like just the whole notion of that movie is fascinating because I know Tim Burton was the director. Nick Cage would have been Superman. I can't fully imagine Nick Cage as Superman, but I think he would have worked within Tim Burton's vision of Superman. And the only scene I know that that movie entails, which they actually do it in the Flash movie, is he fights a spider. Like, of all things, Superman's fighting a spider. But okay.
Honestly, that movie has so many other problems, but that one is like, why a spider? I need to know. But let's move on to Tim Burton's Catwoman. So in kind of Burton's Batman universe, he was supposed to direct a Catwoman movie starring Michelle Pfeiffer, and obviously that did not happen. Pfeiffer ended up dropping out of the project, and Ashley Judd replaced her, and then the project died for one reason or another. No offense to Ashley Judd, but I don't think she would have been able to pull this role off.
No, she definitely would not have pulled it off. I think the film was dead in the water when Michelle Pfeiffer dropped out. But I could see Tim Burton directing it if Michelle Pfeiffer was involved. And I'm sure it would have been a heck of a lot better than that garbage movie we got with Halle Berry with that awful outfit that she had on.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but moving on to a Wonder Woman movie directed by Joss Whedon, which would have been released in the mid 2000s. Now, there is a couple of versions listed in the article. In 96, there was one supposed to be produced by Ivan Reitman. Weird choice, but okay. Then in 99, Joel Silver was going to produce a version which starred Sandra Bullock as Wonder Woman. Interesting choice, but okay. And then there was a 2002 version that died a death. And then in 2005, Bullock was no longer in the picture, but women considered for Wonder Woman included Charisma Carpenter and Morena Baccarin. But
okay.
then the film died again. Needless to
Yeah.
say, from the sounds of it, what we ended up getting with Gal Gadot in 2017, I think that's as good a Wonder Woman movie as we're probably ever gonna get.
Yeah, you brought up Charisma Carpenter and Marina Baccarin. They were actresses who were in some of Joss Whedon's projects. Charisma was Cordelia in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and Marina Baccarin was on Firefly, the short-lived show that he made that spun off into that movie Serenity, which is an awesome movie if you haven't seen it. Uh, I think well, considering what people have against Joss Whedon nowadays, I don't think Joss Whedon would have been a good fit to direct Wonder Woman, but it's still an interesting what if considering how gifted of a writer that he is. I think he could have done something interesting with it. Those actresses that were considered, I could not see as Wonder Woman though. So because of that, I'm glad we got Gal Gadot and the two movies she was in, and Patty Jenkins directing it, who greatly understood the character.
Yeah, Patty Jenkins definitely understood the assignment on that one. 84, well, that's an entirely different story. But let's move on to The Submariner. Now, in 1999, there's that year again. This was in development with Chris Columbus scheduled to direct it, of Home Alone 1 and 2 fame, but he ended up leaving. And actors considered for the role included The Rock, Daniel Day Kim, and David Boreanaz. But as of May 2014, the rights are now back in Marvel Studios. Considering we've got Namor as kind of an aquatic character, I don't know if the Submariner fits in here, but you know, kind of Marvel's answer to Aquaman, if you really think about it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about this character, so I can't really comment on it too much. Of course, Chris Columbus directing a superhero film would have been interesting, though. But I guess maybe it's for the best. I mean, we got Aquaman, and then Marvel's got the Namor character in the Black Panther movies, and that world kind of looked almost like Atlantis, almost when you watch Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So I think we're good on superhero, or well, Namor's case, super villain characters that dwell underwater.
Yeah, for sure. The market is saturated, if you will. But last up in the almost made side of things is The Hands of Shang-Chi. Now, we ended up getting a Shang-Chi movie, But in 2001, Blade director Stephen Norrington was set to direct the movie. However, he ended up leaving the project. And in 2004 it was brought back again, this time with Ang Lee scheduled as producer. But again, he ended up leaving that one as well. No word on who would have portrayed the actor or who would have portrayed Shang-Chi. But again, it's kind of like the Shang-Chi movie we got was kind of as good as Shang-Chi movies we're probably ever going to get. Which, by the way, what happened to Shang-Chi? Like, it's been like almost 5 years and I've heard nothing of the guy. Like, did I miss something here?
Yeah, they did the Shang-Chi movie, and yeah, they need to address Shang-Chi. Like, what happened to him? Like,
Like,
Phase 4 was kind of incoherent. They were kind of like dropping off stuff here and introducing other characters, and I don't know how it's going to tie into play. Like, what Shang-Chi going to do? What's the Eternals going to do? What's Moon Knight going to do? But yeah, Marvel's kind of in a weird place, but I'm still intrigued nonetheless.
lazy booking. But let's move on to the glad that were shelved cat side of things. First up is Fantastic Four 3, which would have continued Fantastic Four and Rise of the Silver Surfer. The film was to feature Franklin Richards, the reality warping mutant son of Reed and Sue Richards. Digimon Hansu was eyed to appear as Black Panther, and Julian McMahon was returning as Doctor Doom because third time's the charm at killing him, I guess. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad this one bit the dust.
Yeah, I like the other two weren't really that eventful either. I think if they had made a third one, people would have lost interest because there's not much, because not too many people like those Fantastic Four movies. So it's probably for the best that it didn't get made.
Also, though, I do want to shout out Digimon Hansu. He ended up voicing Black Panther in sort of a, I don't know if to call it like a series or a mini series, but in 2010 there was a Black Panther mini series that was released, and he ended up voicing the Black Panther for that, and he was quite good. So Digimon
Nice.
Hansu at least got to voice the Black Panther anyway. Next up, and we've discussed this one a bunch of times, the Justice League movie directed by George Miller. So we all know what that one is. Next up is X-Men Origins Magneto. This would have been Magneto's origin story. And considering how awful X-Men Origins Wolverine was, consider that another bullet dodge because good Lord, that movie is awful.
Yeah, Origins Wolverine is terrible. But I think I read when the Magneto movie was scrapped, they took some of the best elements of that story and incorporated it into First Class, which turned out to be a fantastic movie. So I don't know if Magneto's origin would have worked as a full movie, but it worked in First Class with the ensemble. We got what we needed to know of Magneto in that film, along with Charles Xavier, and it led to one of the best movies in that franchise.
Yeah, for sure. And if anyone could have made it work, it would have been Ian McKellen if he was brought back for it.
Yeah, but Michael Fassbender, though, like considering you know he had a lot of shoes to fill because Ian McKellen did such a great job as Magneto, he definitely knocked it out of the park and did a great job of still capturing the pain and frustration of that character. And even though you don't 100% agree with his motives, you do completely understand where he's coming from.
Exactly. But next up is a Wolverine standalone movie, which would have starred either Glenn Danzig of the band Danzig as the titular character, Doug Ray Scott, which is a particularly famous story because Doug Ray Scott was the villain in Mission Impossible 2. He chose that over X-Men, and the rest is history. And Bob Hoskins. Yes, Mario from the Super Mario Brothers movie was at one time considered for Wolverine. I am reading this correct.
Bob Hoskins. Wow, I
And the
could not.
studio was eyeing James Cameron to produce it, while Stan Lee ended up trying to bring it all together. But ultimately, it parlayed into what would eventually becoming Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi. So hey, something good came of it.
Yeah, Bob Hoskins though. Wow.
Yeah, odd choice, but
Yeah, I can't picture that one. Let's just appreciate that the role was cast well with Hugh Jackman.
exactly. Well, next up is Canon Spider-Man. Back in the 1980s, Canon Films owned the rights to Spider-Man. They approached Toby Hooper to produce, or not to produce, but direct a proposed feature. That would have been wild. And the
Toby
premise,
Hooper, the director of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that Toby Hooper?
exactly. The premise is that a mad scientist exposed Peter Parker to radiation, which turned him into a human spider, like 8 arms and everything. The plot revolved around Parker's refusal to join the scientist's radiated mutant army. Luckily, Stan Lee put a stop on the premise and demanded they stick to the established story. Thank God for Stan Lee.
Yeah.
Like, he had the foresight to see what a bunch of crap this was.
Well, Stan Lee probably saw Canon Studios' other superhero film, Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. He's like, you ain't messing with my Spidey, man.
Like, what were they thinking? Is like, what Peter Parker like an actual spider? Like, jeez.
Well, that's probably why they got Toby Hooper. They probably mistook Spider-Man as a horror story and wanted him to do something like something like a creature feature. It sounded like.
But excuse me. One interesting note: the movie had already burned $10 million into its production, but those sets would end up being used partially for a movie called Cyborg, starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. So at least they got something out of it. Next up is Batman Triumphant, which would have been the next movie after Batman and Robin, if this is correct. It was slotted for a 1999 release. Scarecrow would have been the baddie. Oh Christ, what Joel Schumacher would do with Scarecrow, I shudder to think. Rest in peace, Joel Schumacher, but good lord. Jack Nicholson's Joker was to cameo in a fear hallucination. Harley Quinn would also be featured as she wanted revenge for Joker's demise. Good thing that Joel Schumacher didn't get his hands on Harley Quinn because, again, like, just what in the world? The shortlist for the Scarecrow included Nicolas Cage, Steve Buscemi, Ewan McGregor. Hold on to this one, Jacob. Jeff Goldblum. I low key want to see that.
Jeff Goldblum or Nicolas Cage would have worked well in a Joel Schumacher Batman movie. I'm just saying.
Reportedly, Schumacher's choice for Harley Quinn was Courtney Love. Luckily, Batman and Robin tanked, and we were spared a fifth installment. Yeah, thank God for
I
that.
mean, I'm curious about the movie of what it would have been because
I'm
love him or hate him, Joel Schumacher left his mark on Batman for better and worse. And
yeah,
the older I've gotten, the more as silly as they are, the more I've kind of appreciated the campier side of Batman and like its weird sort of way. So I would have been interested to see this other Batman movie if it got made.
yeah. I don't hate Joel Schumacher by any means. Rest in peace. The dude was a very talented director, music videos, movies, like, and a lot of things in between. But he just didn't get it, or at least like he got it, but he got like all the weird stuff and just turned it up to 11 in a time when just wasn't the prescription. But next up is a Batman Beyond movie, which was eventually shelved. Let's see. This was set to take place in 2040, and if you know anything about Batman Beyond, it's pretty much that exact premise. By 2001, interest waned, and Warner Bros. Decided to move forward with a new trilogy pitched by Christopher Nolan, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I feel bad for that Batman Beyond story because I think they've been trying to develop it for years. I think even during like the uncertainty of the DCU, I think if the Flash movie was successful, I think they had attempted to get Michael Keaton to come back and do a Batman Beyond story, but the Flash tanked. I don't think that's going to happen now.
Yeah.
So, I feel bad for that because I hear about this story and it sounds like a really awesome story that I'd like to see adapted on film someday. But DC's in such a mess right now.
Honestly, we should just watch Batman Beyond, like the animated series.
There's an animated series.
Yeah, it was a sequel to Batman the Animated Series.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, it was really popular for a while. But let's breeze over this one. This is Batman Year One, which would have been directed by Darren Aronofsky, and I believe would have starred Joaquin Phoenix as Batman. And there was even a rumor that Frank Miller was set to write the script. However, by the time this was set to like the chickens coming home to roost, a guy named Christopher Nolan had hit the scene, and the rest is history. So it was wild, like what WB was pitching, like in the 98, 99, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 8 years in between Batman and Robin and Batman Begins. Like they were just throwing whatever at the wall to see what stuck, and what ended up sticking was Batman Begins.
Yeah, and I'm glad we got Batman Begins because that's such a great movie.
Yeah, for sure. But Darren Aronofsky is someone I'm not really a huge fan of. Like Requiem for a Dream is a really good movie, but it's also a really distressing movie as well. It's one of those one and done watches for me. Glad I saw it, but I will never be watching it again for
Yeah,
many reasons.
yeah, he would have been too artsy fartsy for Batman. Like that's probably for the best.
Yeah. Well, next up, and our penultimate one, Mort the Dead Teenager. You know, Marvel Comics literally has thousands of characters from which to draw in developing film projects. The fact that some exec believed Mort the Dead Teenager was due for his big screen debut is inconceivable. Mort was an obscure character from a 93 series by Larry Hama and Gary Halgren. The story is that Mort Graves is a bullied teenager. He dies in a car accident and meets the Grim Reaper's son, Teen Death. Teen Death returns returns Mort to Earth to haunt those who mistreated him and attempt to impress his dream girl. Oh, he has the ability to remove his head whenever he wants. Yeah, so we're luckily spared this nugget of cinematic excellence. I am reading this article word for word, folks. I cannot make this up. So, Jacob, we going to see the Mort the Dead teenager
This sounds awful.
movie?
Like you lost me when you said there's a character named Teen Death.
Teen Death. I low key want to see like Death as a father and having a teenage son. Like that would be.
How does that work? Is there like a how does he have a teenage son? Like where's mommy Death?
Let's not go down the rabbit hole. Let's save it for another episode. But last one for this episode, glad shelved. Silver Surfer, the musical. This
Oh,
ha- this has to be the film that many of us are ecstatic about having been shelved permanently. In his book, Marvel Comics The Untold Story, author Sean Howe tells us that this was indeed a film that was being developed. In the early 80s, Lee Kramer, executive producer of disco musical Xanadu, had the idea for a film about the Silver Surfer with a contemporary rock and roll soundtrack. He envisioned an epic film starring Olivia Newton-John and scored by Sir Paul McCartney himself. Would it have been a hit? Maybe, but we think the film would have done the character a major disservice. So, Jacob, Silver Surfer the musical is in theaters, and the Beatles Lord of the Rings is in theaters. Which one are you going to see?
I don't know. The one that the one that's probably the most so bad it's amazing of the two would probably still be Beatles Lord of the Rings, directed by Stanley Kubrick, because at least Kubrick would have had good visuals. But Silver Surfer the musical, that just sounds well, anything's better than Dick's the musical, but I still think that's a terrible idea to make a musical off the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, as much as people complain about the crap that like Hollywood is producing nowadays, remember, it can always be worse.
Yeah,
That's kind of like a phrase I'm running with nowadays. It can always be worse because it's true. But
yeah, I can't picture that one. Like the soundtrack, maybe, but why would you musicalize a Marvel character?
I don't know. But anywho, that was an interesting article to read. I pass it off to all of you. Is there one of these movies that you would end up seeing? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. And Jacob, thank you as always for doing this with me every week. It is such a privilege. You're just an awesome co-host, and I appreciate it. Tell the people where they can find you.
They can find me on Letterboxd, Twitter, and Facebook, and you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel where I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, occasional music videos, other fun stuff, live streams. As far as what's going on my channel this week, it's going to be continued uploads from different like stuff I've covered on the recent What I've Watched live stream. I have a celebrating Disney review this week up for Meet the Robinsons, and I should also have a review this week up for uh, Iron Fist season one, and maybe one other video I haven't decided yet. So if you're in the mood to check out my content, feel free to subscribe if you haven't already.
Yep, Jacob's channel is linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe there. As for this channel, it is full-blown Scorsese month. I want to thank everyone for checking out the King of Comedy review. It actually did better than I was expecting it to, low-key. And again, I don't pay super big attention to numbers, but it was a very pleasant surprise to see that review get as much traction as it did. So thank you very much. And it will be continuing later on this week with my thoughts on 1995's Casino. And then the rest of the month will be 2008's The Departed and 2013's The Wolf of Wall Street. So it'll be every Friday this month. And then Chris Mania will be my 25 Christmas review series, which I'm already starting to prepare for. But a lot of really fun stuff coming to the channel. By the time this episode drops, the Small Talk watch party for the Smallville season 2 finale will have aired. Thank you so much if you checked that one out. A replay of it will be going up next week, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, so many like really fun really fun content coming to the channel throughout the remainder of 2023 and into 2024 because I've got big plans, big plans for 2024, but I'll let you all know about that as the time comes. But for Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. Y'all take care.